Hi, in this video I want to touch upon the subject. It should be a short video on the explanation of some kind of expectation of how this world that we live in, this universe we live in, could have some kind of different, some kind of singularity, some kind of way that this world's going to live in more. And it's more looking at it from the other side and understanding why these people can view it. And I think it has to do with some kind of concept of not necessarily understanding the truth enough and recognizing the existence that we're living in. And we're living in an existence where it's based off of a simple mechanism. Crude force is having an effect on, obviously, precious commodities is a way of putting it. At least the way that someone like Wyndham puts it. He puts it, the precious commodity at the expense of crude forces and the way that they're how they're moving around. And it's sort of like the singularity. It's something that you can't necessarily explain. Sort of like an idea of heaven. And the idea of heaven is you're pretty much going to move on to some kind of spectacular afterlife. And what are you going to do when you're in heaven? How are you going to experience something like hell? What are you going to do? What's going to happen in this eternal life where you're existing in pure joy and happiness? I mean, what are you going to be doing? How are you going to experience joy and happiness without being completely unaware of yourself, being some kind of droid that's just moving, unaware of itself and recognizing? Because the whole point of awareness is experiencing negatives and positives. And you can't, and it's just this recognition of understanding your own emotions and how you work, how your same biological processes work, and how you function as an experiential and emotional, sensational being that's experiencing things on a regular basis. And it goes back to this whole experiencing things and experiencing the idea, like singularity, explaining something. We're going to live on forever. Why? What are you going to do forever? What are you going to be doing? You're not going to be doing anything. You're just going to what? I'm going to be a robot, and I want to have a flamethrower arm, and I want to live on forever in this world where forever exists on end, and we do what we want, and forever to them, I guess, is no ending. It's not going to end. It begins at birth and never ends beyond that, and they're just going to live a life completely devoid of an understanding of the game that they're playing. They're just going to be playing the same game over and over again. They're going to be satisfying the same deprivations, experiencing the same pains. Otherwise, like I've mentioned before, what's the point in existing if you're going to keep experiencing the same thing over and over, these redundant things that keep satisfying us, that keep jerking us off? All we're doing is satisfying these desires that we have, satisfying looking at the rainbow, our projections of value on a rainbow. What does a rainbow do for us? It makes us feel good. And what does it accomplish in and of itself for the human race? It makes us feel a little satisfied and helps us motivate us. It changes, it makes a few chemicals bubble up in our brain, and it sparks a few of the synapses in our brain and our neurology, and all of a sudden we feel like we can conquer the world. Obviously, what does the rainbow do in and of itself? What does it do in and of itself? What is the thing that satisfies us do in and of itself? What does this thing do? What are we doing? How does this satisfaction have an effect beyond the effect it has on something else? What does the rainbow do in and of itself that has a difference, that makes a difference, that makes our life beyond the same game of satisfying our projections of value and escaping our negatives by looking at our projections of value? What does the rainbow do for us that makes life worth living, or make life have some kind of other ulterior, ethereal, non-ephemeral meaning? It has something that moves on and doesn't just keep on doing the same thing. Oh, I'm looking at the rainbow. Okay, I feel good. I need to look at the rainbow at 6 o'clock tomorrow too, because to make sure I don't replenish my sense of understanding the universe and the rainbow. I need to look at a triple rainbow next time, and then you're going to be looking for a quadruple rainbow, and it goes from a single to a double to a triple to a quadruple. Sometimes you can be satisfied with just one. But that means you don't have much of a filling, a gap that you're filling. The more you feel passion for life, the more you have expectations, the more you're going to want more and more and more and more. And that's what creates this kind of passion, this feeding, this deprivation that leads to all the greater of the satisfaction. So that's back to the point. Obviously, that's completely irrational. Creating the same expectation, just wanting more and more, and just wanting to do the same thing. You can only go so far. You can only consume so much. The singularity thing, you're not going to experience any singularity. Maybe you are. You're going to go into the computer chip, and all the electronics are going to spark, and the programs are all meet at one. Consciousness is going to be one with another. But that oneness the oneness, like I've explained before, can only go as far as having a child or doing something. Your oneness with someone else. On the atomic level, we're not touching anything, right? We're always a space apart for something. We're always an atomic space apart. right? From the atomic level as far down as you can look, the quarks, the things beyond that, the photons, which you could probably argue is the smallest form of um, any kind of matter, is a photon that makes up all this light, the thing that we're existing, and we're moving at the speed of light every time we move, even though I'm not moving like this. Obviously, that's a description of how fast my hand is moving from here to here. Okay, 20 miles an hour, but the movement inside this movement, the vibrations causing the movement, it's moving at the speed of light. That's what causes the thing that moving. Obviously, everything's made up of photons, and that's exactly what we're doing on the smallest, you can argue, molecular level that we're experiencing everything on. But there's no singularity. We're not doing anything beyond being one with each other by procreating. That's the only way we become one. That's the way the universe is created, by evolution. The universe obviously is a crude mechanism, but obviously it's created a mechanism beyond the greatest way beyond our control that we can understand. We can't do the game better than the game itself. The game has created us, and the game, and the argument is that it's just a bad game, and the intelligence thing, that creating this idea of an intelligence outside of this game, creating a better game, can't exist, because the game is the game, and we're living in this game, and some outside creator creating the game would just say, heck with the game. The game can't be any better because there's no other mechanisms by which this game is working. There's no alternate universe where things are completely void of want, need, and want. And it's not about, missing, not having need and want. It's about having it be completely different. It's not need and want. And I'm even using words as examples of these different ideas. And, you'll see colors you've never seen before. Colors that never existed. I see colors, cognito, eros, ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. Something like that. Where I see something different than you live in a different universe than me. Obviously, if I look through your point of view, you're going to see something different. I'm going to experience your emotion. I'm experiencing something different here and there and everywhere. I'm going to experience nothingness but everywhere at the same time, but nowhere at the same time, but at the same time nowhere, all at once, but spread off forever on, ending, go on and going on forth. Explaining it through all this, extension of language and the manipulation of language and ideas, not even knowing where they're coming from with their ideas. They don't even know. They're confusing themselves with their own ideas. They don't know where they're going. They don't know where they came from. They're just sort of speaking. And I'm sort of speaking right now, but I can at least understand at the very base level, the back of my head, I have some coherent idea that I'm, portraying. That's why I get off track a lot. And I think that this discussion and explanation of all these different ideas obviously can confuse some people, and they confuse one idea with another, and they confuse all sorts of different ideas that they have. And sometimes it can just lead to this bibble babble. Sometimes it's a denial. Sometimes it's over-complicated, over-explaining things, confusing yourself. But there's nothing beyond what we're playing. It's a want mechanism, and I have obviously already explained this before. And we're just living in a world based off of a mechanism that makes life worth living, but also makes it not worth living. The satisfaction we gain makes it worth living. If it was all negative, obviously it wouldn't be worth living. And the fact that we have to go through the negative and usually more of an experience, the whole game is escaping negative. That's obviously the thing that makes the life not worth living, obviously, especially more that you recognize it, the more that it's going to become an idea that you don't want to live by. It's a very uncomforting idea. It's an idea that doesn't make any sense. So I think I explained everything good enough. There's nothing beyond the way the world works. There's no other explanation of how things work. And this whole subjective thing, obviously, from our own point of view, we obviously have projection of value and things like that. But beyond that, and this explanation of something that works differently in some different reality, a different universe, a different dimension, something like that. There's no elimination of want and need in something completely different. This is by the only way, one in one universe. This is the universe we're living. This is the only proof that we have of a universe. There's nothing else that's proving the universe, or any other universe that we have. The only proof we have is the universe that we're living in, and the experiences we're experiencing. It's sort of like, aliens. Well, in movies, why do aliens always look like they're going out of the way to make an alien? They don't. Every alien's going to end up like a human being, usually, based on the conditions that create a life. Creating a life is more likely to end up with another Earth. You're going to have to end up with another Earth, another planet, in the same circumstances as Earth is, and almost exactly the same circumstances. And you're probably going to end up with humans. You're not going to end up with tentacle beasts. Life can probably only happen one way, and that's human beings, the way that we've been created. And that's obviously, since the circumstances are so thin and how human beings can be created. Obviously, the idiosyncrasy, things can obviously be different, but obviously, generally speaking, they're going to look exactly like us, because life can happen in such a narrow of means, such rigid of means, that it's essentially going to just end up being humans, and you're not going to be able to tell the difference. So, yeah, I think that explains it enough. There's nothing outside of us. There's no other dimension where things work but don't work in a completely different way, but work in a way infinitely, but not this way and that way. Nothing up, down, left, right, and center, and whatever. Northwest, east, west, southeast, northwest, east, and southwest. It doesn't work that way. And at least, as far as we know, theoretically speaking, and it's completely unreasonable, especially using the example I used with life, and human beings and life and things like that. So I think I explained that enough. Since, there's no other, obviously life would happen a certain way. It's one and one. The universe is probably going to happen the exact same way. Some other universe, if there is one, will be exactly the same universe. What's the point of being redundant? It'd be the exact same thing pretty much. The same ideas, the same things, the mechanisms would work exactly in the same way. And obviously, since it's deterministic, obviously they would happen in a very specific way, and things would happen based off of predetermination from a beginning to an end, based off the first cause, leading to obviously something that's going to happen. And obviously, obviously the system is so closed, and maybe the circumstances that cause the universe are so close that obviously they would be just like the human being, and the living thing. It's in a very narrow function that causes them to happen only one way. There's not any kind of different distinction. Obviously, distinction, that's not the way to put it. There's not any other way to separate these things. They happen the exact same way, no matter how many other universes you have or anything like that, because the capability, the likelihood of things happening any other different way is very rigid and very unlikely, the possibility, because they have to happen under rigid circumstances. And just like us human beings and other life forms that may but not likely exist in the universe, would be exactly like us, or like the universe would be exactly like us. The same mechanisms exist in the same way. There's nothing else. There's mattering, and we're just being exposed to that mattering, and we have sentience, and we're experiencing and recognizing it. So that's all I have to say, and thank you, and until next time, bye.